In Dungeons & Dragons, it's the Druid that speaks for the trees and all the other plants, plus all of the animals communing with the creatures of air, land, and sea. Druids can summon these powerful beasts to unleash their furiosity in battle, or actually embody their various forms and abilities to accomplish many things in the wider world. They can be like nature wizards or primal priests wielding magic to maintain balance or reshape the battlefield against those who are foolish enough to mess with Mother Nature. And they're shapeshifters, come on.
But
Oh, where'd that asshole go?
Hey everybody, welcome to the Verdigris Table. I am Ryan Doyle, and Druids may be my favorite class in the game. And I know I just said that about clerics, but Druids and clerics actually have a lot in common. Only Druids are achieving chaos. In this video, we're going to make a character sheet for a Druid together, going step by step through character creation. So if this is your first Dungeons & Dragons character, or maybe it's been a while since you've played, hang out with me and we'll go through your options and we're gonna have a good time doing it. You're still welcome to share your time with us if you've got years of experience under your belt, of course, but we're gonna keep things very beginner friendly in this guide. I would love it if you took a second to let us know how long you've been playing TTRPGs like D&D, and also where you're from. We're an ever-growing international community, and I love sticking more pins into the map. So please leave a comment down below while I tell you about today's sponsor real quick. Into the AM makes comfortable, fashionable clothing that fits well and looks super cool, like this beautiful t-shirt I'm wearing today. They've got all your bases covered, including solids and pants, hoodies. They have some nice Henleys now that it's getting colder out, but I gotta say, their graphic tees are where it's at. Look at all of these designs. Clicking on my affiliate link down below is an easy way to help support this channel, and you will actually get a nice discount in the process. Get yourself a cool shirt or a 3-pack. You deserve it. All right, let's make a Druid. We're going to be working out of the Players Handbook that came out in 2024, which is the new core rules for Dungeons and Dragons. I picked up this lovely gold alternative cover version from my neighborhood's friendly local game shop, but I've also got a link down below where you can order a copy online for the cheapest price around as well. While I like a good physical book for vibes and immutability that digital products can't touch, in this video we will be working on DNDBeyond, where I've also paid to unlock the PHB. We're using this lovely illustration as our inspiration today. Sometimes if you don't know what kind of character you're feeling, flipping through the pages until an image speaks to you is a good way as any to get started. I mean, look at this guy. He's living his best life, and all of these animals are clearly pumped to be around him. So let's get us some of that. Before we get started building our character, it's worth checking in with our dungeon master. There's a lot of good reasons for this, honestly, but finding out the limits of what sources we're allowed to use for character creation is maybe first and foremost, and that's going to come into play in the very first tab of character creation on DNDBeyond. I just grabbed Wax from this fantasy name generator built into DNDBeyond now. Smart. I'm going to turn off everything. When in doubt, that's the way to go. I'm only using pure Players Handbook and the basic free rules, and that is not a judgment on any of this stuff, particularly partnered content. There's a lot of awesome third-party products out there, but unless you have a conversation with your dungeon master and they say, yeah, Humblewood is in line with what I am bringing to the table on my side, then you don't want to just show up with it. We're going to leave the rest of this alone without further input from our dungeon master. What kind of advancement? Are we doing experience points, milestone? How are we determining hit points? The only thing I'll say out of the gate, most tables are not using encumbrance. If you are, hey, more power to you. All right, let's get into it and make us a Druid. So, core Druid traits. Our primary ability, the score we want to focus on the most, is Wisdom. That's going to determine our spellcasting modifier. We're working with a D8 for hit points, which is middle of the road is good for a full caster. We are a full caster. Saving throws, we got intelligence, which doesn't come up very much. I'm going to be honest with you. When it does, well, it's important. But wisdom, you're probably going to be rolling much more of, which is good news, because again, we're pumping up wisdom, so we're going to be very good at wisdom saving throws, especially with the added proficiency. We're going to do skills in 1 second. We are proficient with simple weapons. We get an herbalism kit, and we're proficient with an herbalism kit, and we have light armor and shields available to us. Now, druids used to canonically not be able to use metal stuff, except for sickles. All very weird and esoteric. We're not going to worry too much about it. But if you're coming from older editions, that is gone. It's kind of folded into only being able to use light armor, but your shield doesn't have to be made out of wood. Your studded leather doesn't have to have seashells or pebbles attached to it because you're afraid of touching iron. No longer the case anymore. We're going to do equipment when we get our equipment in a later tab, and now our choices start coming in. I love perception. It is going to be the skill you roll the most, especially if you are a wisdom-based character. And I think out of any class, I could think of caveats, maybe a ranger, like a druid should have pretty darn good perception. We're also going to lean into nature, just because this guy is green. And this is going to come up again in a couple minutes, so let's put a pin in that. I'm not going to dive too deep into this nature pick, but I will say animal handling feels right in line with the druid, and hey, maybe it is, but it doesn't come up that often in play, and you're going to have a lot more better, stronger ways to interact with beasts going forward. So for flavor, sure, pick animal handling, but we're not getting a ton of skills. We're only getting 2, so I want them to count. Survival is also a great skill to have in an exploration heavy game. You might not be at an exploration heavy table. Again, maybe a good thing to talk to your dungeon master about. How often are you going to call for survival checks? You're going to be out in the wilderness finding a path, tracking people or animals, foes. But I'm taking nature right now. Information about plants and animals and ecosystems and elements are going to be in my wheelhouse. That's the kind of character we are making today. That's most druids, but definitely this guy. Spellcasting is a huge part of who we are and what we're bringing to the table. We get 2 cantrips. Our table is telling us we're getting 4 first level spells and 2 first level spell slots at level 1. I'm going to highlight, just like we did for the cleric, whenever you finish a long rest, you can change your list of prepared spells, replacing any of the spells with other druid spells for which you have spell slots. You can't take a level 2 spell. If you can't cast a level 2 spell, that's actually saving you some heartache. Wisdom is a spellcasting modifier. We need a druidic focus, perhaps a sprig of mistletoe, man, I recommend, as a spellcasting focus for our druidic spells. So again, we are prepared in the old style sense of the word. We are prepared spellcasters. All of the spells on our spell list when we wake up in the morning are available to us, and we can select them, changing our loadout day by day by day. If I sit down at the table and I want to be a healer, and I'm sitting next to a cleric who's rolling into that healer role as hard as they can, now maybe I'm going to pivot and be more of like a summoner or a blaster or an elementalist. There's a lot of ways to go with the druid, and in a lot of ways our spell selections determining that classification, what abilities we are bringing to the table day by day, so we can be essentially a different kind of character every day, which is super appealing to a guy like me. I like options and variety. I like tinkering. I like custom tuning. I would end up with a couple different spell lists on the back of my character sheet or in an index card, like this is my town day, this is my exploration, this is down in the dungeon, this is a combat heavy day. So predicting out what kind of spells we're going to need. And we'll talk more about spells in a minute. Druidic is also a feature we're getting at first level. We know Druidic, the secret language of the Druids. While learning the ancient tongue, you also unlocked the magic of communicating with animals. You always have the Speak with Animals spell prepared. Love it. Speak with Animals, a very awesome, iconic, good for druids, especially this druid surrounded by enamored beasts in the image that we're working off of. But sometimes if we only have a certain amount of spells prepared, like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to bump into a squirrel who happens to know things I need to know today. So having it always prepared is nice. It's one less decision off the table, and you always can, talk to a mouse that's been living in the walls of the secret hideout of this criminal syndicate, this cult, whatever the case may be, and you can learn a lot. Don't sleep on the ability to speak with animals. Again, we're sitting next to a cleric or a wizard, and they're preparing some elaborate ritual to contact some other plane, to divine some sort of esoteric riddle that they're going to have to unpack, and we can just ask the house cat, hey, who killed this guy? Situational, yes, but the other side of the coin, Druidic, unless we're talking to other druids, I find doesn't come up as much as I would like. If someone else in the party learns it, cool, we can have a secret language that we can leave messages in, kind of hide them in leaves and sticks and cairns, whatever the case may be. But the Speak with Animals is probably going to come up more in play. That being said, if I'm a game master and I have a druid at the table, I'm going to look for opportunities to insert Druidic here and there. Primal Order. Much like the cleric, again, we have a split here in what kind of druid we're going to be, almost like a mini subclass at first level. Wardens are trained for battle and gain proficiency with martial weapons and training with medium armor. Most of the ways that druids are going to excel at frontline melee combat involve transforming themselves into beasts and using their attacks and AC and physical stats. So I'm a little suspicious of Warden being the best answer for you, especially you, new player. So I recommend Magician. You're really concerned, especially you're doing a one-shot and it's only going to be first level and you want that extra AC, okay, maybe go Warden. Or, again, I am a big advocate of choosing flavor over optimization. If it's what your character is like, cool. All right, lean into Warden. In my mind, it's halfway to a ranger, but you're losing a lot by not choosing Magician for most builds, if not the vast majority of Druid builds. If we go Magician, we know an extra cantrip, and again, we're only getting 2, so that's super nice. In addition, your mystical connection to nature gives you a bonus to your intelligence, arcana, or nature checks. The bonus equals our wisdom modifier. So instead of using intelligence, or as well as using intelligence, or arcana, so just magic stuff, and nature, which again, I want to be the authority about, we're also adding our wisdom modifier. Pretty dope. Okay, now we're getting into spells because we get a cantrip from this Magician feature, Primal Order selection here. So I am going to take Shillelagh. There's going to be some tough choices here. There's a lot of cool cantrips available to druids, and we're not getting access to all of them. I love Shillelagh. I love saying Shillelagh, and this dude's got a pretty awesome, clearly magically infused quarterstaff he's working with in the image. So yes, if I am in melee, which I don't know if it's going to be my thing or not, but it's going to come up occasionally, especially at first level, gang, I can use my wisdom instead of my strength for the attack roll. So I can dump wisdom and still be rolling with a +3, +5 to the attack rolls and adding my wisdom instead of subtracting my strength from the attack damage when I cast Shillelagh. Plus, it's just cool. I have this image of a quarterstaff, just a smooth stick, broom handle, right? Featureless, swelling with nature's primal energy, knots and like rooty protrusions, gnarls growing out of it, and it just being way more intimidating of a weapon and way more impactful of a weapon. Plus, it's force damage. So getting around a lot of resistances, so just super cool cantrip. That's what we're taking at level 1. But we got some more decisions to make over here up in spells. Boom, 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 boom. So right now we still have 2 cantrips. That one didn't count against us. And 4 first level spells to select. So we already have Shillelagh. I like Druidcraft. I don't know if I like it enough to have it be one of my 2 selections here. This is the Druid's version of Prestidigitation, Thaumaturgy, basic, cool, minor magical effects, minor illusion you can kind of put in that same category as well. Out of those cantrips, Druidcraft is the most limited. Some would say the worst. It's cool to light a campfire with your magic, create a flower blossom from your hand, but we are making some very difficult choices today in our Druid, and I don't know if Druidcraft is gonna make it. There's a ton of tables where guidance is going to get used way more and come in handy much more frequently and be way more clutch than Druidcraft. I am going as natural and kind of like wild as possible here. So I am looking at, well, a damage cantrip. Poison Spray is doing a D12. Pretty great, especially for a ranged attack. Very strong, but the poison damage type is the one you're going to see the most resistant or even immunity to. So that D12 essentially becomes a D6 on a lot of targets. Now, I will say I can change a cantrip every time I level up. So I might make the gamble on Poison Spray for level 1, level 2, maybe even level 3, pushing it. And when I start seeing it not being as effective, or I am anticipating it's not going to be as effective, I could swap it out for something else. If I am going to be Circle of the Stars, and we're getting way far ahead of ourselves with subclass circle selection, but Starry Wisp is right on trend for a Circle of the Stars, and just any other kind of druid. It gives you 60 feet, so if I'm leaning into the nature wizard or whatever priestly healer type of backline, far away from the action and potential danger, then Starry Wisp is nice, radiant damage is nice, D8 is not so bad, and they produce light. So they can't, it's much harder to hide, and it's impossible to be invisible when you are glowing like a beacon. Just because I am leaning as hard as I can into the image of the druid in the PHB, I'm taking Vine Whip. He just strikes me as a guy who casts Vine Whip. It only does D6 piercing damage, which again is worse than the other couple options we've looked at so far. But we can pull creatures closer to us. We can reposition them. And there's not a ton of ways to do that. It's very druidy. And it is allowing me a bit of field control, which is a little more situational and potentially a little more advanced. I'm not going to call it super advanced, but like medium strategic difficulty challenge rating. But oh boy, it's a fun sort of puzzle to play and can up the enjoyment and the decision making in combat in a huge way. Produce Flame is maybe the go-to here. If I wasn't taking Thorn Whip, I might take Produce Flame because it is my version of light, essentially. I'm chilling with a little candle/torch in my hand, right? Somewhere between a candle and a torch. Doesn't hurt me. It's not producing heat. And I can then throw it at somebody and do a d8 of fire damage, which is nice. I can potentially use it in other ways. If I do want to light a torch or a candle, it's like, hey, I can produce flame all day at will with the bonus action. However, it's a bonus action to cast produce flame, and then it's going to take an action to attack with it, essentially. So going forward, if there are other things I might like to do with my bonus action, this is going to start to have way more of an opportunity cost. So that is my warning about produce flame. Is that going to come up at level 1? Probably not very often. Potions are now a bonus action, but there's not a ton of bonus actions we're going to be thinking about. So take one ranged damage cantrip. When all else fails, that's a decent default, especially early levels. And then I would take a utility cantrip. If I'm sitting next to that cleric and they've got guidance, then like maybe I'm not doing it. But if they're not, guidance is great. Add a d4 to just about every skill when we have a tiny bit of lead time, a tiny bit of preparation. That's great. Spare the dying, we talked about for the cleric, is okay. It stops people from dying, which is always nice, but there's probably better ways to heal them that actually restores hit points. If I'm going for like full-on elemental build, maybe I'm taking Thunderclap as well. This is also a nice oopsie daisy sort of thing where if I'm in the front and I get surrounded, I can pop this con save, which creatures are going to get progressively better at, or a d6 of thunder damage. D6 isn't a lot, but potentially I'm hitting, depending on how you play, 7 targets, right? 3, 6, 7, 8 targets. It's probably never going to be more than 2 or 3, really. But now that's 2d6, 3d6, and the biggest damage producing cantrip on this list here. Downside, again, we got to be next to him. So yeah, we're going to take guidance for this build. If I was going full elementalist, right? This is a awesome flavor / utility cantrip. Elementalism, air, earth, fire, water. And then you can sculpt. You know what? Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. My boy is playing, oops, I'm going to remove guidance. And again, we can change these every level, not every morning, but yeah, I'm missing Druidcraft. I'm not going to lie. I'm a simp for cool, flavorful magic moments and spells that you can use creatively. It's nice to have one. So there you go. All right, now the interesting stuff and the stuff that we can change every day. Our first level spells. We have Speak with Animals prepared, but Animal Friendship, especially early on, where like some of the most challenging creatures we're going to be facing are wolves and bears, things we're going to be emulating very soon. Just a little, I got a little treat for you here, and now we're buds, as long as they don't make their wisdom save, and now they're charmed for 24 hours. Pretty cool, and right on brand for all, again, those enamored. There's an otter in there, there's the fox, if I remember correctly, looks very fond of me. I think there might be some enchantment at play in that one, and as I upcast this, I can get more and more beasts. So yeah, we're taking Animal Friendship again to start. If I get to the table and find out, oh, there's no beasts down here, all right, I'll change it in the morning. I only have 2 spell slots to start, and I'm preparing 4 spells, so at least 2 of these are going to remain on the table. There's a chance I use those 2 spell slots to do one thing twice, so again, don't overthink it. I'm going to jump down to Entangle. This is what my guy's doing. I'm taking all the green stuff. I'm taking the viney, thorny stuff. I got Thorn Whip, and I can actually Thorn Whip you into place so that the area of effect of my Entangle next turn is going to get more creatures in it and then boom, you guys are stuck, and we can run up and beat on you, or run the heck away, or whatever variation we may choose. So yeah, I'm definitely taking Entangle. Again, I like crowd control. It's kind of a niche ability, but especially if I'm in like a big table, I'm trying to carve out my own little spotlight moments. That's always cool. Again, Thunderwave is a good like elementalist spell. It's a cube coming out from you. We can actually push people away too, and I'll tell you what, that's what's going to do it for me. There's a chance I don't want you in my face. Thunderwave is a good, please get away from me. Could bring somebody in and push them back. We can be shooting people into environmental hazards. The floor is lava, whatever the case may be. There's some cool ways to do it. I have a decision to make every time I prepare spells, what kind of a day I'm going to have. Not necessarily what kind of a druid am I. If I'm the healer, I'm absolutely taking Healing Word. This is what my bonus action might be going towards, and why I'm a little shy about using Produce Flame every time. But, Goodberry, it's obviously not as good by some measures. It's only giving you 1 hit point. But this is one of the iconic Druid spells in my mind. I will say, of certain DM running like a very resource-heavy, exploration-based game where I care about your foraging abilities, isn't gonna love seeing you show up with Goodberry. But those games are few and far between. So I can start the day, if it turns out that everyone's looking at me to provide healing, I can be like, okay, blah, fill my hand with little berries. They look like cranberries in my mind. They're definitely red, right? These aren't blue. Maybe they're purple. Hand them out to people. Here, that'll last. That'll keep for a day. You need some healing? There you go. You eat it. You're in charge of that. I got other stuff to do. Because again, in my mind, this druid is cool with this party. I'm not going to be this like lone wolf jerk. But I'm also not going to prioritize people over nature. Ice Knife, also a cool option. It shatters, potentially doing damage to people around the target as well. Just a cool thing if I'm building the avatar, essentially. We've been dancing around the idea of building the avatar. The avatar sounds like a monk, and you can kind of make him now as a monk. But we're not talking about blue people, by the way. The avatar elemental style of play, Druid's probably going to get you there faster. Next. All right, background. What were we doing before we launched our adventuring career? Or potentially relaunched. Maybe we retired, and we're coming back out of retirement to be an adventurer again. The vanilla obvious option, I feel like, for a druid is a guide. The outdoorsy type, but who has some dealings with, city slickers. We are getting Constitution and Wisdom are probably the two things we're looking to get. We're definitely looking for Wisdom. Maybe we're looking for Dexterity over Con. But this is giving us good ability scores, and it's giving us Magic Initiate Druid. Stealth, survival, always good skills. Maybe we're being sneaky. A lot of the times, if we're really trying to be sneaky, as we level up, we might actually become a sneaky kind of creature, or a creature that could pass unnoticed in whatever space. So maybe stealth isn't as much of a consideration, but survival will dovetail nicely with our wisdom. And while it's kind of a double dip into Druid and maybe not as appealing as some other options on this list, even other options within Magic Initiate, we don't get a ton of spells. So we would use Wisdom and Druidcraft, Guidance, whatever the spell that I didn't take, or spells that I didn't take. Now this decision is much easier. I'm not feeling the lack of, man, I wish I took Message, and I only had 2 cantrips. Now who's counting? We got 5 if we go this way, plus another first level spell, always prepared. Today, I think the other way to go That's vanilla. And again, you can do very interesting things with contrast, juxtapositions, go nuts, make any kind of character you like. But my man looks like a hermit, doesn't he? He lives out in the woods, rarely talking to people, right? He's not running a side hustle, taking eco-tourists out to some yurts somewhere. He is more comfortable alone or surrounded by animals than people. Again, it's giving us our con and our wisdom. Charisma is definitely going to be our dump stat. That feels right for a character who would rather talk to their animal friends than human beings, or well, humanoids, I should say. And we're going to get the healer feat, which is maybe not as optimal as some other origin feats we could get, but in this concept of, yeah, I'll heal you, but I'm not a healer, this healer feat kind of clicks right into that. Plus, we're getting medicine and religion. So again, medicine is a good knowledge base for like disease, wounds, stuff like that, and for very basic rudimentary healing that's not going to cost us much. And religion is just nice. You're going to be looking at some weird cult stuff at some point in your career. You're going to be examining some sort of symbol on an altar somewhere, and you might be the one to figure out what you're dealing with. We also get a tool proficiency. We already have the we're getting a healer kit thing, which is something else kind of, and we already have geez, I'm blanking, the herbalism kit. So depending on how crafting is going at your table, you might lean into some of these more than others. How much downtime you're getting, how the economy works in your Dungeon Master's world. Spoiler alert, probably not super well. What is an iconic vanilla crunchy hippie chaos druid? I almost want to catch brewer supplies, but cook's utensils? I feel like that's a fun one. That kind of goes with like the providing, foraging side of things. Also just take an instrument. Again, I'm not going to agonize over this. If I'm going to be like the wayfaring, or well, that means something else now in this game, but if I'm going to be the wayfinding cartographer's tools, maybe a decent choice. Let's go brewer's supplies, just for fun, just for flavor. We're cooking up brews, maybe incorporating some weird ingredients, fungi, whatever in it. We're going to increase 2 scores. I'm going to put 1 in con and 2 in wisdom. And let's dig into the healer feat here. You gain the following benefits. Battle Medic. If you have a healer's kit, which we will make sure that we always have a healer's kit, you can expend 1 use out of 10 and tend to a creature within 5 feet of yourself as a utilize action. So 1 action in battle, 6 seconds, as long as you can get to them, touch them with this healer's kit. That creature can expend 1 of its hit dice, and you then roll that die. The creature regains a number of hit points equal to the roll plus your proficiency bonus. So the question being, are you using your hit dice a lot? Are you taking a lot of short rests? That's going to depend on play style and party composition and a couple other things. But at a lot of tables, the answer is no. We're not going to be rolling our hit dice much. So this makes them relevant. And again, it's suboptimal, but I do like the idea of this guy doesn't have a lot of healing magic. He only takes care of himself. He'll sit down with the healer's kit and like patch you up. He's definitely, sprained an ankle and set it himself in the past, but I'm not prepping cure wounds out of the gate. Maybe down the road I change my mind. I prepare healing spells. It's a big day. We're going to face the BBEG. Our healers, the players themselves are out of town, and I'm going to fulfill that role just for tonight. And even if that happens, this healer feat is still going to benefit me to a degree, because whenever you roll a die to determine the number of hit points you restore with a spell or with Battle Medic, you can re-roll ones. once. But now we are a better healer if that's the role we're taking. There's a world where we do a custom background. I take Magic Initiate and pick up a couple Cleric spells, a couple Wizard spells. Farmer is also flavor-wise kind of in line with what I would imagine a Hermit to be, and Tough is always nice. HP is always nice, especially for Druids now if we're going to go more wild shape frontlining. The rest of this page is where we're going to kind of document our other character traits and abilities. And this is where I go reaching for the Game Master's Compendium of Explosive Creation. A pretty awesome book, if I do say so myself. I made it, so I'm a little biased. Filled with tables to make characters way more compelling and interesting and better interconnected to the world building and the adventure design of the games they're going to be in. So I could, again, this is going to be mostly flavor today. I could take that Explorer, kind of lean into the guide side of things and use that, but we're going to stick with Hermit today. All right, I can roll a handful of dice or read through the whole list and see which really rings a bell, or sometimes I'll just look at the page and see if something jumps out at me. And number 2 is doing that today. Seek ingredients for their lifelong project. I took that brewer's kit. Maybe it's that. You know, it could be all sorts of stuff. Maybe it's spells. You know, maybe I pick out a 3rd, 4th, higher perhaps, but I wouldn't recommend it. But maybe I'm looking at a 4th level spell, and I am out in the world gaining the experience and perhaps material components to be able to cast that spell. Or again, I'm just looking for cool ingredients for my druidic rituals or my homebrews. And that's cool because, I leaned into nature. I'm interested in plants and animals. Hey, DM, are there any cool mushrooms down here? Or the Dungeon Master describes a mushroom, you know I'm checking it out every time. Maybe it's a cool ingredient. And that's my thing. That's what I'm into. It's a good motivation to explore my world or their world a little bit more. For catalysts, calls to adventure, why are we no longer a hermit? Why are we out in the world adventuring with a bunch of other jabronis? For a message in the skies most would miss. I like that. We're reading the omens in the clouds, the migratory habits of birds, murmurations, always a cool thing to say and see. Yeah, I saw the sign. I saw the sign. A message in the skies most would miss. And hey, maybe I'm clued in to some shift in the natural order of things and I want to restore the balance, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe a dirigible goes by and I think it's chemtrails because it's just moisture or whatever. Don't at me in the comments. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too far, but I could be wrong. I see a cloud that looks like a dragon, and now I'm convinced there's a dragon coming, and I set off to find one, and hey, maybe it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. For potential growth and character arc, these are all going to be right in line with like a hermit archetype. But Lucky 7, obsessively self-reliant to accepting help. That's interesting. So, and that fits in nicely with like the kind of begrudging half I can heal you sort of character I, for whatever reason, decided to build today. Here, like, you take care of yourself. Here's a couple good berries, but like that's the extent of it. And I got them in my pocket. I don't expect you to help me. And then maybe down the line, you know, I don't take guidance and I get guidance cast on me by the cleric, or there's 100 opportunities for me to be potentially confused and slowly more grateful and excited and willing to reciprocate when being in a party is beneficial to this person who's lived on their own for so long. That's a pretty cool way to kind of flirt with that loner archetype without being a total jerk, right? I think that I don't need help from anybody else, and when it turns out that I do, maybe because I'm taking on challenges way bigger than anything I faced before, it changes me as a person, and cool, interesting characters are ones that change over time. All right, so this next column is definitely something we're going to want to tag team with the Dungeon Master at most tables to make sure that these friendly factions and allied NPCs fit into their world, the adventure and story that they're telling. But let's say Starlit Symposium, a network of astrologers pooling celestial data, mostly nocturnal. So mostly nocturnal's doing a lot of heavy lifting there. That sparks a lot of creativity in my mind, but I don't want to get too far into my Dungeon Master role tonight. The idea, like I saw something in the skies and maybe I'm looking for the Starlit Symposium, and I'm open to never finding them, Dungeon Master, but like I saw something in the skies. I have some reason to believe that these astrologers are out there. Oh, by the way, they're nocturnal, which means maybe they're some sort of creature type who has sunlight sickness. That has a lot of juicy potential. Oh, by the way, I have this fox named Swift, a playful, very intelligent fox who visits every so often for snacks and scritches. David the Gnome fans out there, let me know. Again, maybe your Dungeon Master is like, nah, there's no foxes in my world. I doubt that they're going to say that, but again, we're crossing into the region that they control. We control our character, they control the world. There's a lot of cool stuff that happens in the interaction of the two, but we want to respect boundaries in all things. That holds extra true for showing up at the table with a magic item. So again, we want to check with the Dungeon Master. Maybe we don't have this. Like maybe we've heard stories of it. Maybe it's out in the world. None of this stuff is too crazy OP offensive, but your Dungeon Master might not want to. If they give you a magic item, they got to give everybody a magic item, and then hey, that's what this book is for. But if we start with the one off of this table, journal of the person they feel closest to, who they've never actually met. That's perfect for this hermit, right? The most impactful relationship we've had is with this book, and yeah, I'm getting like Thoreau vibes, or some transcendentalist. Maybe it's the inspiration for why we're a hermit in the first place. Maybe it's an astronomer. Maybe it has something to do with why we were looking in the skies in the first place, why we're looking for the Starlit Symposium now. There's a bunch of different ways that could go, but it's so open-ended that I might just give the prompt itself to the Dungeon Master and say, hey, how can we make this work in a way that you are excited about, in a way that connects my character to the adventure that you're running? The next page, these are all 2-page spreads for each archetype. This is definitely going to be the Dungeon Master's territory, where they're getting ideas for antagonistic organizations, rival NPCs up to and including enemies and BBEGs, cool locations, awesome monsters, and plot hooks to interconnect the characters to the story, get them moving, or to create new interesting adventures and stories. So check out the Game Master's Compendium of Explosive Creation on DriveThruRPG. There's a big fatty sample up there where you can get the full intro and a couple of these spreads. This is available in print and in PDF. And buying this obviously helps support the channel and keeps me making awesome stuff like this book and this video. Thanks. All right, there's a lot of cool options for species when it comes to Druid, but we are going by that picture, and for a little bit, I was getting elf, and maybe that's just because I want to see elf, but I think this guy's a human. I really do, so we're going for it. And human's not a bad choice. Don't sleep on humans. A lot of people sit down, they play a fantasy game. I'm a human all day, every day, baby. I don't need to be a human. I want to be an orc. I want to be an elf. I want to live 1,000 years, or be 3 feet tall. I can choose how. I can be 2 to 7 feet tall. Humans are very diversified. That's kind of the point of them. We're getting speed of 30 feet, and humans are resourceful. This is super cool. We gain heroic inspiration whenever we finish a long rest. That's nice. There's always just this D20 just sitting there. I might get a special one. One I like excuses to buy dice, but I might just have it sitting there. Every time we have an adventuring day, we get an advantage once when we choose. That's a nice thing to have. Having skills, also a nice thing to have. We took nature, we hemmed and hawed about perception. We already took perception. Survival. I'm going to take survival this time. Again, animal handling could be cool, but survival. That guy's a survivor, right? 100%. The other, potentially most awesome thing from being a human is we get an extra origin feat. So if you saw me pass over background that had a cool, like we wanted that magic initiate druid, we can get it right here. There's a lot of cool options here, and I like alert. Alert is speaking to me for this character. Again, I could go get wizard skill spells. I could get a couple more skills if that's the kind of character I want. That's my role in the party again, and then it fits in with like the self-reliant, transcendental, alone survivalist kind of character. Lucky, especially combined with resourceful, is a nice one too. It's not as cheesy as it used to be, which I actually like, especially as the DM main. You have a number of luck points equal to your proficiency bonus, 2 to start, and can spend the points on the benefits below. After a long rest, you get those points back. When I roll a d20, I can spend 1 luck point to give myself advantage on the roll. So now I have 3 d20s that I can spend to give myself advantage each adventuring day. Awesome. Or, at least with these 2 d20s, I can impose disadvantage on other rolls. That someone's gonna come hit me. Oh, nope, Dungeon Master, roll 2 dice and take the lower result. But again, alert for this like self-reliant, alone hermit character feels right. I think it's an undervalued feat, honestly. It lets us add a proficiency bonus to initiative, which, again, if we're trying to be a controller, I want to throw out Entangle and lock down the battlefield. I kind of want to do that before my front line gets in the mix with those enemies. And as the power of these spells increases, as my spellcasting, my spell slots improve over time, the idea of wanting to get the first cast out before everybody else becomes more and more appealing to me for this type of character. But even if that's not the kind of character rocking, immediately after you roll initiative, you can swap your initiative with the initiative of one willing ally in the same combat. You can't make the swap if you or the ally has the incapacitated condition. Cool. I am a healer in the party, right? I kind of actually want to go last. There's been a lot of times where as a life cleric, I've been like, well, I don't know what to do yet. Or even if I am like the controller or the blaster, I want to see how things play out a little bit first. Or maybe I want this front line to get out ahead of me before I reveal that I'm the biggest threat here, baby, because I'm dropping lightning bolts from the sky. That'll come, don't worry. I can swap my initiative with somebody else's. Maybe we want the rogue to get their sneak attack off before things pop off. Maybe the cleric wants to drop bless or something before everybody runs off into battle. There's a lot of situations where having the ability to switch the initiative order, even just swapping 2 characters, can be super powerful, and I don't think people realize that as much as they could if they had experienced it. Again, you don't like that? You can take anything. We want another couple druid spells? You got it. There's a bunch of different origin feats that are awesome. If you're in doubt and you don't like the idea of alert, grab lucky. But again, don't underestimate alert. We already have 2 languages. We have Druidic and Common. Everyone's got Common. And we're a human, so there's no one obvious choice for me here. I love sign language. It's got that non-verbal component, that sort of secret, silent, the rogue goes off on a infiltration mission, we can speak to each other without potentially learning others. I would be looking around at who's in my party. We got a bunch of elves at the table. Maybe I'm taking elvish so I can talk to them. I got a bunch of orcs at the table. Maybe I'm taking orc. Maybe in my backstory, you know, I am a hermit. I've been by myself, but the closest settlement were orcs or whatever, dwarves. Take your pick. Let's do some standard array tonight. I am a big fan of point buy because I like dialing things in and tinkering. Even when I use point buy, I start with standard array. Instead of starting with 8s across the board, I can get to standard array from point buy. So I'll start with these numbers and then subtract so I can add. And it's just less math and faster. This is going to be a long video. It already is. You can tell anything that speeds up character creation is probably a good thing. Strength, like we said, is going to be my dump stat. Charisma also, and I could switch these maybe, but I'm not the face of the party. I don't talk to people much. My best friend is a fox. The person I'm closest to is a dead writer from 200 years ago. Wisdom, obviously, is the biggest. I'm going to lean into Constitution and then Dexterity. And you can see this has left my intelligence fairly high. Intelligence is often a decent dump stat, but I want to know things. One, I'm a hermit. I'm reading books by myself. That fits my story and the flavor. But two, I've taken a lot of skills that proc intelligence because I want to be knowledgeable. I like that sort of character, especially in like a utility kind of character. Your mileage may vary. You can switch these around, but your constitution is going to be more important than it used to be. Oh, Druid, who's used to 5e stats, and wisdom is your most important one. All right, let's come down here, see how that all fleshed out. We got a +3 in wisdom, and I'm sitting on a 17. If I get one more here from a magic item or an ability score increase down the road, now I'm rocking +4, which is awesome. Now, if I'm in a point buy mindset, and I'm not really sure I'm ever going to see level 4, maybe I actually take this excess, put it into dexterity, get a +2, beef up my AC a little bit. Same thing goes for Constitution. I could go up here and I could do this right now, actually, if I really wanted to. Let's do it. Let's switch Con and Dex just for argument's sake. And yeah, maybe that's better long term. I'm a little bit harder to hit. I'm a little more likely to get out of the way of fireball. And I'm still sitting on a +2 here. And I've still set myself up nicely to improve on my main stat sooner rather than later. Until we're like sitting down to play, these are open to change. If I wake up in the middle of the night, I was like, I should have taken Druidcraft, or there's an orc in the party and I want to speak to them, whatever the case is. We can change this until we sit down to play that first time, or whatever, until we sit down at session 0 or send this to our dungeon master. I'm a fairly permissive dungeon master. I will let characters respec minor things if they have good reason. But that's me. Don't expect that. But yeah, I said it. I always recommend taking the starting equipment. It usually adds up to more than 50, or in this case, actually 41 GPs worth of stuff. And it's just good to have, and it's quicker. In fact, we're not even going to talk about it this time. Take that stuff. We're also going to take the Hermit's starting equipment because I don't have a quarterstaff here, and that's what I'm going to be using for Shillelagh, as well as I'll sell this herbalism kit and get me a healer's kit down at the store. Extra lamp oil, I got a book, that's always nice, whatever. Let's do this. I'm going to add starting equipment, and then I'm going to show you in here, and it's easier in here, you can do it at the other page too. We want to wear and wield the stuff, and I'll turn on the sickle too, just to have it. I did have a staff. Oh, that's funny. Is that new, gang? Staff and quarterstaff are different things? That's funny. Not necessary. Maybe that was always the case and I just blanked on it and combined them in my head. Anywho, we want to make sure we're turning on all the stuff that we want up to and including our backpack, because if we're using encumbrance, weight's gonna matter. And I dumped strength and I have a ton of stuff, so I would go through. I doubled up on a lot of things. How did I screw up here? Like, what am I got 2 bedrolls from her, I guess. Yeah, I guess both my background and my... Is there a bedroll in here? I told you we weren't going to look at this, but now I'm looking. All right. So I've doubled up on a bunch of things. I can sell them. I will get half the money back at most tables. Otherwise, I'll literally ditch them. Most games, we're going to have more gold than we know what to do with pretty soon. I like exporting to PDF. I like a character sheet. I'm kind of old school. I like a pen and paper. I like physical dice. But I recognize a lot of people are going to play just using D&D Beyond. And it's cool because you can make dice roll around. Check that out. Rolled initiative. Got a 23 because I got a +4 to initiative because I took that alert feat. So I'm going first, or alternatively, I'm deciding who's going first, which might even be more powerful in some situations. Spells are here, spell slots are here. We could do a whole freaking video on a tour for this, but you might not use it. You might be cool like me and use the old character sheet. Let's level up, because one of the coolest things about being a druid happens at level 2. Boom. Oops. Boom. I stepped on the drama a little bit, but here's our wild shape. The power of nature allows you to assume the form of an animal. As a bonus action, you shapeshift into the beast form you have learned for this feature, up to 4 to start. They're like spells. You're prepared to be 4 different kinds of creature. The monster manual is not out yet at the recording of this video, so I'm not going to dive deep into what are the best things to know. Go for diversity. Go for one that's going to be brawlic, that's going to give you the ability to smash your enemies, and then look for more utility. A spider that can climb on the wall can do a lot of things that and get into a lot of places that a brown bear isn't going to be able to. Wolf has pack tactics. Look at these corollary abilities that these different creatures are getting. Down the road, we might want something that can swim when it's available to us up at level 8. We definitely want something that can fly. The amount of forms we have known available to us increases over time. The max CR, how imposing these beasts are, also go up over time. These are only beasts. I'm going to say that again. These are only beasts. There's a lot of stuff that is not a beast that maybe you would think is a beast, like, I know it's in the movie, owl bears. Owl bears are not beasts. You cannot wild shape into an owl bear. The Druid did it in the movie. I get it. It's a special subclass in an older version of the game. However, you're not going to be an owl bear. Sorry about it. At least not until you meet some high-level unscrupulous wizard. Now, wild shape is a little complicated. You're turning into an animal and you're using their physical abilities. While in beast shape, you retain your personality, your memories, and your ability to speak, unlike polymorph. And you gain temporary hit points equal to your druid level. If you're coming from an older edition, if you're coming from 5e 2014, whatever we're calling these things these days, you're only gaining temporary hit points equal to your druid level. When those are spent, you don't drop wild shape. You're going into your own HP pool. You retain your creature type, humanoid, hit points, hit point dice, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma scores. And you have your class features, you have your languages, you have your feats. You also retain your skill and saving throw proficiencies and use your proficiency bonus for them, in addition to gaining the proficiencies of the creature. So if I have some sort of advantage to perception, which a couple creatures, a couple beasts get a couple different ways, I can use that and my super good perception modifier to make a perception check. If the beast's is higher than mine, I can choose to use that instead. But if I am making a dexterity saving throw, odds are the beast's is going to be better than mine, but if it's not, I'm using mine. I can't cast spells when I am in a wild shape, but I can concentrate on them. And concentration is something we haven't talked about too much. It's going to be much more important at higher levels for us druids, but that is one reason we're pumping our constitution. We're going to have some pretty awesome spells that we're going to be wanting to concentrate on. And we can do that. We can call lightning and then transform into a bear and continue to concentrate on it. Again, we're going to have to make constitution saving throws if we get knocked around. Maybe eventually we get Warcaster to make us even better at that. There we go. In general, you're not wielding your weapons and wearing your armor. You can leave that stuff on the ground. It can transform into you, and don't worry about it. If you're going to be a giant ape, then okay, yeah, maybe I'll let you use your great axe or something. But your ability to handle objects is determined by the form's limbs rather than your own. So sorry, your marmoset can't play piano, whatever. But you start off with 4, and you want their entire stat blocks handy. If you're like, hey, Dungeon Master, I'm a wolf now, they're gonna be like, cool, and expect you to know what that means. So be prepared with that. Get the stat blocks together. There's a lot in the PHB for this very reason. There's beasts in the PHB that you can use. Bookmark those pages or copy them, paste them, whatever tool set you're using. Have them handy. You can start with 4 and you can swap out 1 at a time. And that's a good way to experiment with different builds, different loadouts, the different utilities. You can get very creative with Wild Shape. And at level 3, your subclass is also going to give you a special use to Wild Shape. Other super cool thing we're going to get second level is Wild Companion. We get Find Familiar for free. Not for free. I mean, it costs us a spell slot or use of Wild Shape, which it's cool that those are fungible. But we can cast Find Familiar without material components, which cost 10 gold off the top of my head. I think it's still 10 gold. Ours are only going to be Fey, which is not a huge thing, but might come up occasionally. And they disappear when we finish a long rest. So this is something it only lasts a day, but it can be pretty clutch to have a familiar. There's a lot of cool ways we can use that. Again, the monster manual isn't out. I can't tell you what the perfect or the top 3 best familiars to use in the game are right now, but again, check out the monster manual. Check out the Players Handbook or beasts that you could probably be using as Fey Find Familiars. At higher levels, we get a ton of awesome stuff, especially at level 3. Our subclass comes online, and the kind of druid we're going to be gets defined. I always recommend not getting too far ahead of yourself. You might want to have a concept of what kind of druid subclass, what kind of circle we're taking out of the gate. But I don't want to see you, especially you new player, fall in love with Elemental Fury, make plans around your 4th level spells when it's going to take you a very long time to get there, and there's a chance you actually don't. Maybe you only see level 4, level 5, and this campaign starts over, you want to do a new character, somebody moves away, it's a different game, it's a different campaign, whatever the case may be. Don't get too far ahead of yourself. If you're watching this video, odds are you're searching for character creation advice, and you're going to find stuff about the difference between capstone abilities and epic boons, and my best advice to you is don't worry about it. It's not going to come up for at least a year. But subclasses are super cool for druids. We're going to talk about them in a later video. Until then, thanks so much for spending your time to hang out with me. I appreciate you for watching this one. I hope I see you next time. Until then, be kind and have fun. Bye.